lot of good albums that came out this year, and I only decided to count down 5. Seems like every year Deerhoof puts out the best album I've ever heard. While The Magic was a super fun party time album, this was more of a politically charged, a little bit angry album, probably the only like angry Deerhoof album I've ever heard, and yet still managed to be fun, still managed to be Deerhoof, and still managed to be one of the best albums that I heard this year. You know, I grew up with this band. I probably started listening to them when I was like 14, and now I'm 22, and they started making music when they were in their early 20s, and now they're in their early 30s, and the childish despair, the melodrama that, in the self-awareness of that melodrama was what really drew me to them initially, and this album is a culmination of all of that coming true. It really fit with the year after Brexit. It seemed like Brexit kind of hit them very hard, and it turns out that that presents us with the opportunity for some excellent music. You know, back in January I had sort of an existential crisis where I wondered, you know, what's the point of doing any of this? That was a bad month, if I remember right, just in the general news, and hearing this album come out in January actually reminded me that, yeah, while things around you might be mediocre, things around you might be like soul-sucking and horrible, there's still a way to find love and to find something great out of that, and this album was hilarious, was incredibly good just musically, was a really fun mashup dance album, if completely devoid of all of the great comedic aspects of the mashups. But the fact that he was able to make something like this out of so many just like kind of mediocre songs, I don't know, there was something more to that I felt this year, along with it being an excellent album. As it turns out, somebody had fun this year. In 2017, Dude York saved America, saved Christmas, and saved music. And they will go on to do even greater things in 2018 going forward. Godspeed, Dude York. I probably could have put like 15 albums in this video. I just only felt like listing 5 of them, and I couldn't really fit it into a neat 10. So I had a couple of honorable mentions. Rainer Maria, self-titled, good to see them back. Soft Sounds from Another Planet by Japanese Breakfast, that's a de facto number 6. The song 12 Steps, or 12 Step off of that album might be my favorite song of the year. EP2 by Yeji, there's a great track called Drink I'm Sipping On that may as well also be one of my favorite songs of the year. New Trick by Skating Polly, Duster's Lament by Yucky Duster, After Laughter by Paramore, Utopia by Bjork, of course, and we'll put Love is Rage 2 by Lil Uzi Vert on the honorable mentions as well. I hear often the phrase, we don't deserve something, when something is good. You hear it with like a cute image of a dog, and it's like, we don't deserve dogs. And the question came up that, do we need somebody like Jay Som who writes everything perfectly and makes completely perfect music and says exactly the right thing exactly when it needs to be said? And regardless of whether or not we deserved Jay Som, I felt like we needed her this year, or at least I needed this album this year. In particular, there was a point in May when every little thing in my life seemed to be bearing down upon me, and I was listening to the ninth track on this album, the title track, Everybody Works, and it came to the end of the song. The last about 30 seconds of that song are just fantastic, and it was just blaring through the speakers of my Hyundai, and I was sitting in a parking lot, like completely in stasis, unable to think about anything else. And for that moment alone, honestly, this was the best album of this year. And then for all of the other moments after that that were just as perfect, this was the best album of this year.